Hello, I've never done this before. This is my first time. I'm doing a live on TikTok. So bear with me. I'm not sure if anybody's watching, but I'm just going to start talking. I'm doing this live tonight. I think somebody's there. I'm doing this live tonight. I'm going to talk about spiritual battle that's been going on for a very long time, that we black people are not aware of. We think this is, I'm not sure what we think it is, but brief. We have Deontay Wilder, who's a boxer, who will be boxing this Saturday. If you guys are into boxing, you probably know about it. He's going to have a match with Tyson Fury. On the outside, it looks like it's just a boxing match. As most things happening in the world, it just looks like it's just another thing happening. But in reality, everything that happens in the world is spiritual. Everything. There's nothing that is not spiritual. Although they make us think spirituality is something that's outside of our experiences, when in actuality, all of our experiences are spiritual. So Deontay Wilder had a boxing match about last year with Tyson Fury. The whole time he was using his ancestral powers. He was claiming he's a king from Egypt. He was using his khemet spirituality, that he was going to beat Tyson Fury because he was the supreme god of Egypt, and that with his ancestral forces he was going to do so. Sounds like all fun and games in the beginning, of course, until he did beat Tyson Fury in a couple of matches. And then Tyson Fury came back during the pre-conference matches, started to accuse Deontay of venerating fake gods, and that his gods were powerless, and that no one had ever heard of those gods that he's talking about, and that he was Satan himself for claiming to be using khemet spirituality, and that he was a demon. And eventually, believe it or not, Deontay Wilder actually came back during the next pre-conference and admitted that he had chosen to give his life to Jesus Christ. And he had changed his mind, so Tyson Fury came in and congratulated him. The whole time, Deontay Wilder, he also had to change his trainer. So he changed his trainer. And the new trainer basically told Deontay, you don't speak, don't listen to Fury. I mean, Deontay changed completely after he accepted Jesus Christ. He became very docile. He wasn't speaking anymore during the pre-conference match. The person who before was very powerful was now very docile and accepting. And Tyson Fury, of course, was very grand and saying, yes, you've accepted my God, and all of this. And after the next match that was supposed to happen in July, I believe, was they didn't have that match. It's going to be this Saturday. So interestingly, I can't wait to see what happens with that match. But I want to tell you what's really going on in that scenario that I just told you about. It's not just a boxing match. This is something that happens every day throughout our lives. We are being intimidated artificially to artificial intelligence. First, we were with the Bible, of course, for a very long time, when they used the Bible to tell us stories that would put fear in us. First, as you all know, if you're black, you should know that the Bible was used to enslave us, and it was also used to torture us, to put us into slavery. And to do that, they told us all kinds of things that were going to make us so scared. Like, for example, they told us we were going to go to hell, and they described what hell was. And some of us still didn't want to accept that. They tortured us, they burned us alive. And finally, generations and generations after, of course, being born into this false religion, false God, then it became sort of automatic. It became normal, and it became part of our gene. It's part of our genealogy to be born as a black person and to think this is what reality really is, which is to venerate a false god, to venerate God to religion. When in actuality, spirituality has nothing to do with religion. We, the Kemet, we, the African people from Kemet, we never had religion. We venerated gods. We have many different gods in our spirituality. We built many civilizations with that understanding, with how we understood the cosmos, with how we understood the world. This is how, we venerated our gods. And for that to change to a single monotheistic religion that they told us, this is who the God is, which is the God of Israel. We had not known anything about this God that they presented to us through a book that they wrote, and they came up with a story, which is a copy of everything that we were, and presented it to us in a manner, like I just told you, that we were enslaved through it. So everything about this is traumatic. So that trauma lives in us. And that trauma passed down from generation to generation of Black people are being born into this trauma. This is how we are living our lives now, with this trauma. So the Bible, like I said, as we were venerating the false god, as we were being told this story, as our brain and our mind was taking this information in centuries and centuries, taking it in and living in it, and now we're giving it our energy. Understand that everything about a human being, everything that we are, is energy. And this energy is the very thing that they are after. Because we Kemet people, we have the most powerful energy because we have the melanin, which is the most powerful thing. And the energy that we have, this whole thing was always about a battle of energy. So the whole thing is to take our energy and take it to another planet, the planet where they came from. They're taking this energy and taking it to their planet because they are not like us. We, the Kemet from Africa, we are not the same people with these people who had enslaved us. These people who are taking our energy and taking it to another planet. But they had to enslave us to get this process going, to get into our minds, to get into our chi, to use our electrodes, to have this whole system set up and to get it going. It's been set up. It's been centuries. It's been set up. Now they no longer need to have us in chains to continue this process. Because if you understand how the process works, as human beings with our mind, with our brain that's connected to the cosmos, with our chi as the main antenna, everything, like right now I'm speaking to you, you can hear me. I don't know where you are, you're far away, but you can hear me. This is all happening, of course, to the frequencies, the satellite that they are using for this cellular network that's working for you to hear me, for us to connect. This is what this is about. So as that is happening, automatically the energy is being transferred. But my emotions, how I think, how I feel, has a lot to do with how much energy I emit. The more fearful I am, the more energy, the more emotional I am. If I'm angry, the more energy that I'm emitting to my electrode, to my chi, which is my brain, which is the antenna. So understand that our traumatic past, which is slavery, already had set that all up. That's all set up. We automatically react like that. When we are fearful, when we are angry, we automatically react like that. And what makes us fearful? It's the same underlying message from religion from forever that was, the message of you go into hell if you sin. All of those messages, they had give them to you specifically to set you up for what was going to come for millennia afterwards. If they can maintain you in that system, if you stay in that system, of being fearful, of always waiting for a savior, of always thinking you're going to go to hell, of always thinking you're sinning. Your energy is being depleted because that's how to get your energy. Well, now with artificial intelligence, which basically they no longer need you to either go to church, they no longer need you in chains because they already had that system set up already. Now with artificial intelligence, it's already set up where they can read your mind because the increase in speed of the frequency actually makes it doable where they can read your mind, they can see what you're thinking, and they can manipulate your thinking through artificial intelligence. They also can incite violence into you without even you knowing it. They have done this to people already. They've done this to many different people already. And some people have become victims of it where they actually go to the hospitals and stuff. They label them crazy. Their family think they are crazy because they can hear voices. And they are hearing real voices because the artificial intelligence, when it's giving you orders, when you're hearing the voices, it's real. It's coming to the waves. It's coming to the frequency. So you are hearing something. You're not crazy, but others around you will not hear it, but you can hear it. And so they've done that to many people. And actually, I know somebody who they've done this to who actually was successful in going through it and coming out of it using our real spirituality. Because as long as you stay within who you are, they cannot be successful in doing this to you. They cannot. Because the whole thing that they do in trying to trap your energy and taking it from you, that's a small part of metaphysics. That's a small part of voodoo. Okay? Voodoo is a system. Voodoo is a system. It's a complete system, but this is a small part of it. It's not the entire system. Metaphysics, astrology, that's a part of voodoo. So people who knows about this, people who knows the knowledge of voodoo, people who knows about, the frequencies, people who knows about astrology, they know how to use it. And our laws, they have given us this knowledge. We know this knowledge, okay? We can use this knowledge to maintain our energy. And if you don't know about this, if you don't have the knowledge of this, even though you don't go to church, even though you may say you're not a Christian, but the message you have in your brain, the message that you have on a daily basis, your conception, how you think about the world, the unrealistic ways they have taught you to believe things about the world, who you think you are, and what your reality is. That is what they are using as a platform to manipulate you. That's what they had used to manipulate the slaves. That's what they are still using today to manipulate us. Because although we are not slaves in the plantation anymore, but we are still slaves as long as we don't understand that system, as long as they can take your energy. That's what matters. It's not about whether you're not in the plantation anymore or whether you are, quote unquote, a successful person. Because what is your success if your lineage is at stake? What is your success if the next 100 generations of Black people are still in bondage? That is not a success, because in the spiritual realm, success means you are able to maintain your lineage. Success means you are able to stay within your own system, which means you are able to successfully maintain your energy and use your energy to build civilization, to build system, to do what the Egyptians did, to do what we did in Kemet. And if you can't do that, it's because you don't have access to that knowledge. And the reason why you don't have access to that knowledge, or if you have access, you can't use it, is because they keep rerouting your thinking. Everything that you're thinking, they can reroute your thinking if you don't know how to maintain your energy, which is everything. Everything in this world, everything that you are, is energy. If you can't maintain that, if you can't manage it, then essentially you are a slave. It doesn't matter what it looks on the outside. It doesn't matter what you achieve. The achievement that they've sold you to believe that it is achievement is just another lie. So underneath, they can literally take what they really need, which is your energy, and then sell you another illusion, another dream, which is spiritually is worthless. It's worth nothing if you can't maintain your energy. And to do that, you have to have knowledge of the cosmos. You have to have knowledge of the gods. With the Africans and Kemets, they had that. This is why they had built an entire system that people were venerating. The systems, the rituals, they are there to maintain you within a matrix that becomes automatic, where you don't think about it. It's automatic. This is what you do. This is why they put their gods first. Right now, they're telling you to put God first, but this is not a universal God. This is not the real God that you're venerating. It's an egregore. An egregore is not a deity. It's not a God. It's basically, taking your energy to the back door and you don't know about it. And you giving it all your energy is going to that egregore. And that egregore is now, because you yourself, you are a God. Because you yourself, your energy is real. There's no lying about your energy. It's real. But if you use it and you give it to an egregore, that egregore becomes powerful because you give it your energy. So they need your energy. So you are important. You are powerful. But you don't know that. And the fact that you don't know that, the narrative that's out there so you don't know that, is well crafted. It's well crafted because the more you don't know about it, the more you act outside of yourself. Because when you know yourself, you don't act outside of yourself because you know yourself. But if you don't know yourself, then someone has a little button they can touch and they can make you act outside of yourself. And the more you act outside of yourself, the more energy you give, the more emotional you are, the more you get angry, or the more you become fearful. It doesn't matter whether you are angry or whether you are fearful, you give off more energy. And that is exactly what they want. And that's why they set up a system in such a way that it's automatic. It's automatic, it's happening, and your energy is being taken to another planet. We are not one race of human like they make you think. We are not. The Anunnakis they saw our civilization, they saw who we were, and they wanted our energy. And slavery was all about that. The thing that you saw as a layer of that, which was them building their civilization, the economics and all of that, that's a side hustle. Spiritually speaking, that is a side hustle. That's nothing compared to the real bread, the real gold, which is your energy. Because in their system where they come from, in the planet where they come from, they do not have access to energy. They need energy and they need to have the energy. And now, when they're going to go to their planet, they can remotely have access to your energy. They don't need to be here anymore in this planet with you. They'll have access to you through artificial intelligence because they have had centuries of perfecting that system. The system where they introduced the Bible. Through the Bible, your brain, they sold you a story. You believe that story. Through your beliefs, you gave it your energy. You gave it power. Through that power, they set up that system where they locked it up. Once locked up, Now, with the advent of technology and this increase in speed and frequency, through the waves, they have access to your thoughts, they have access to your brain. Through that, they can control you, they can order you, they don't need to have access, direct access to you. It's the same message on the plantation. On the plantation, they told the slaves, your best action is to serve your master as you serve your master, Jesus Christ. That message made the slaves so fearful because the only option he had was to go to heaven. He realized, I have nothing left, but at least if after this I can go to heaven, that will be a good thing because I'm not getting out of this. Well, through that, his ideal went from being free to being in heaven after death. So whenever a slave would not obey, that message made him obey right away and obey his master because he wanted to be in heaven. That's fear. That's intense fear. That's the same fear that has genetically passed down to us Black people automatically. Plus, you add the conditioning. Once we are born, what is our reality? Our reality says there is a universal God. There's only one God. This is how you venerate this God. That continued the fallacy of that religion. It continued. So it's a system that is well perfected. It is in our brain. It is in our body. Once connected to your brain, it automatically, all the electricity in your body emits that energy through the same emotional system, goes to your limbic system, and it goes to your spinal cord. It's one network. It all works together, and it comes out, and it emits that same fear, and it gives off a lot of energy. It is through that same system that they were able, probably, to speak to Weidler, to order him to say he's going to convert to Jesus Christ, which he did. I mean, go watch the game if you think, to understand, to see exactly how that happened, how he was wearing his Egyptian costumes, talking about Amun-Ra, talking about all the other gods in Egypt, pumped up, very positive, standing up for who he was, and they intimidated him, both artificially and in person, because Fury told him you were Satan for venerating a god, a false god from Egypt that nobody knows about. That has an effect on us when somebody says, you are Satan, you are demonic. Even though you don't want to believe you are, that's what they told you your ancestors were. That's what they told you voodoo was. As much as you may not want to believe it, but there is a part of you, if you're not sitting into yourself, for you to not believe it, you'd have to be sitting into who you really are. And if you're not sitting in that, the minute they say that, you're automatically checked out. You're gone, because that's a powerful message. You do not want to be Satan. You do not want to be a demon, because in the plantation, when your ancestors were slaves, if they did not want to be Satan, they did not want to be demon, because that meant they were going to go to hell. They were going to go from one hell to another hell. So that's not something they wanted. And the brave ones who could see through this fallacy, they burned them alive. But they'd rather be burned alive, some of them, than to go to this religion, because if they accept this false god, that meant they bowed down to this god, and they were not going to bow down to another god other than the God that they knew, the universal God, which they knew. So they died with power. But the ones who couldn't keep their power because of brainwashing through the false religion they gave them, they could succumb. And it's the same way today. That message is still very powerful in us. And when somebody tells you it's Satan, you automatically wants to be right. You want to do the right thing. And Weidler did say publicly, this is with the WWF, with the boxing thing. Imagine that. I mean, this big federation, and this is going on. Fury telling him, you Satan. And we have a big federation that, responsible for this. And how could they even have allowed religious views, supposedly, to take place in such medium? But guess what? That's how important this is. This is how important it is. And they made sure they harassed him until he said, yes, he has accepted Jesus Christ. From one match where he was saying he's venerating the God of Egypt to now he said, okay, I accept Jesus Christ. We did a ceremony in the name of Deontay Wilder. We did a ceremony to ask the gods to be with him, to still accompany him, because that is what this is all about. This is not religion. Voodoo is not religion where you just pray and you wait. No. Voodoo is a system. It encompasses everything from there's a god of war, okay, to gods of love. They're all together. Yes, it's one system. This is not the wishy-washy of religion of let's pray together, let's do kumbaya. No, we don't do that in voodoo. If you attack us, we will attack you back because that is law. Those are the principles. It would not be a system if it didn't have a system of protection, a system of defense. It has a system of defense. So if you are attacked, you have to defend yourself. And you defend yourself by putting your force through. You speak out loud. You speak about your force. You don't do voodoo behind closed door like they make you think. That's how you lose all your power, by doing things behind closed doors, by doing things on the weekend, by doing things as a hobby, by doing things when it's convenient for you. No, you put your spirituality first and foremost ahead of you. That is what the other false god has done. That's why he's able to take all your energy. That's why he's able to build his own civilization. That's because he makes you feel like you put him first. You put his God first. You do everything first for him. And then whatever God you think you're going to venerate, you could do that later. No, you change that around. It's your energy that gives things life. It's your energy that creates. It's your energy that does everything. And that cannot be hijacked unless you allow it. Whatever you do, you put your energy into it for the good of your God, your God. You could be working in the enemy's building the house of the enemy, but with the energy of your God, for your God, in the benefit of your God. That's how you manage your energy. You don't wait until you come home and light your candle and say, I'm going to do voodoo now for my God. No, our gods are not gods of the afternoon. They are not God for later on after the white man's God. No, our gods are the gods of the cosmos. When you put their suit on, you get into their building, you're going to do whatever job you do, whatever you're going to do, you do it with the energy of your God. And you put that first. You get up in the morning, you light your candle, you pour libation for your gods before you say hi to their system. That's how you manage your energy. That's how you put your God first. And then you will see in your life how that God will guide you. That's how you will get the protection that you need. The God cannot protect you if you yourself don't feel that you are first. And you are the God who's going to protect you. But you see how that works? You are the God, but you can't protect yourself if you don't believe in yourself. If you don't think you're first, how can you protect yourself? If you think it's something for later on. If you think, well, because when you think it's something for later on, what you're actually saying is, this other God is more powerful. He comes first. That's why he comes first, because he's more powerful. And this is why some people, they use voodoo for little things, to get more money for businesses. It's interesting because with all the money, if you don't have liberty, it's meaningless. If you can't maintain your energy, it's meaningless. What is the money going to do for you for the next generation that's going to be born into slavery? This is what this is about. It's a battle for energy. So you are in the middle of a war. When you're in the middle of a war, you don't stop for a minute so you can have luxury items, for example, because you're in the middle of a war. Whatever you do, it has to be done with the energy of you want to maintain your energy. You know you're in the middle of a war. So, Fury is going to have this match this Saturday. Like I said, my friend who was attacked and who used, because he's a voodoo practitioner, he used voodoo because he was attacked. He knew everything about, metaphysics. So he understood frequencies. He understood, astrology. He understood how the waves and everything, how that works. Because the white man has taken voodoo, the same voodoo that he made you scared of. He has taken it and he's using it on you every single day. You just don't know about it. You just don't understand it. The symbols, the numbers, you don't get it. So you think, oh, he made you think voodoo is demonic. Voodoo is satanic. So then you don't use it. Or when you use it as a hobby. You don't use it to liberate yourself because you don't believe in it to that extent. The white man has big weapons of mass destruction, you think. He has big weapons, big military power. What you don't know is that voodoo, when the French had the big military power that you see today, voodoo exterminated them out of Haiti. How did they do that? The white men still don't know. He knows it was voodoo, but how, he doesn't know. Because he doesn't have all the knowledge. He has some of the knowledge, but not all of the knowledge. He certainly doesn't have. If he had all the knowledge, he would have set you free. It's because he knows he doesn't have all the knowledge. He can't set you free because he knows if you have access to it one day, you'll destroy his civilization overnight. So he has to continuously make you think that you are a little person, that you are, and he uses all the means to play in your mind. He makes you think you're inferior because you're black, and you believe in it. Because the minute you believe in it, you've handed him your energy. That's what it's all about. The minute you believe it, which is the same message, the minute you believe it, he's got you. Because you don't know who you are. If you knew who you were, when somebody said something that's false about you, you wouldn't even think twice to even turn around and look at him. You wouldn't even do that because that would be a waste of your time. Why would I even turn around and look at you when I know who I am? You're talking about somebody. You must not be talking about me. That would have been your attitude. But because you don't know who you are, everything that they say or do frazzles you. And every time you frazzles, it's like the cash machine. Cha-ching with energy. Cha-ching with energy. That's what's going on. And they make you think, all this illusion they put out there for you to distract you. So you never know the real truth. You go to church, you think it's all about, we just venerating God and, we do that on Sundays. And it's, how the world is such a wonderful place and peaceful when God this, when God that. But when you look at reality, you notice everything that they told you, none of it is really panning out. Not really. Not at all, actually. And if you really, really, really look deeply, you realize everything that they told you that was bad is actually what's good. So your best bet is to actually get back into what they told you was demonic and start looking into it and start asking more questions about it. I mean, why would somebody who tells you that your ancestors were demonic and satanic? And by the way, when they're talking about ancestors, we black people don't understand the full meaning of the word ancestors. Your ancestors or your lineage, your royal lineage, who you see. These people knew who we are, and they knew without a plan, well calculated, this was not going to happen. First, they had to make you think, here you are, royal. Your lineage is royal. They got you from being royal to slaves. How do you do that? You can't do that overnight. You don't just do that just like that. You need a plan to do that. You need a big plan. And they had one. First, by demonizing everything about you. Everything that you are, from the way you speak to the way you dress, to what you ate, your gods that you venerated, how you dance. Everything about you was demonized. Because they know once they can do that, guess what? The rest is easy. You're going to do that yourself. For yourself. You're going to do it to yourself, and then you're going to do it to your children, and your children is going to do it to their children, and that's going to go on for 1,000 years. And then they can sit back and just count. They can sit back and just count. And that's exactly what they did. So your ancestors are your lineage. But it comes all the way up to your parents, your grandparents. Can you imagine your grandparents, your parents raised you. They gave you life. They gave you everything you needed. They took care of you. They protected you. And someone else come and make you think that you shouldn't venerate them as a people. You shouldn't venerate their memories, all the way, everything about them that you shouldn't venerate, that you shouldn't pour libation for them, that instead you should go to the church and do a mass. But in you shouldn't venerate them because that's a sin, because they are dead. That's what religion says. They are dead. You don't venerate that. But you see them venerating their own ancestors, right? When you celebrate 4th of July, when you celebrate all of these other holidays, what are you venerating? When you go in their churches, their saints, what are you venerating? That is their ancestors. They're not your ancestors. You're venerating their ancestors, their egregore. You're giving your energy to their egregore. You're making their egregore powerful. You as a god with the energy of the universe, of the cosmos, the stars. That's what's in you. That's who you are. You are a dust from the stars. So you are God. You use that energy to an egregore, a group of people from another planet who needs your energy, and you give it to them. That's how we become their slaves. And we will continue to be their slaves as long as we don't know how to maintain our energy. What's the importance of our energy? What kind of veil do they put in front of our eyes that we cannot see? Because that's what it is. They put a veil, and through the veil, you can't see. I don't care how bright you are and how spiritual you are, unless you realize you are not in your own matrix. They just rerouted. They have many back doors. They don't only have one back door. They have many back doors. If you get out of this door, they got another door for you that you go through. You said, oh, I'm out. No, you're not out. You're back in the same matrix because they have many doors. Voodoo and the system of voodoo is what can liberate us, is what can keep you inside, put you in a different system. You stay in that, then they can't pull you. They can't make you a slave. They can't read your mind. They can't give you orders for a no-frill life. This is what they offer us, a no-frill life, a no-frill existence. That's what this is. Everything you see right now that makes it look like it's glitter and gold and it's beautiful, it's a no-frill existence comparatively to who our ancestors were. It's a no-frill existence. Who are you spiritually? If you just look at the burial ceremony of an Egyptian pharaoh, go look at that. Go search that on YouTube. The burial ceremony for a pharaoh. And then compare that with whatever you see happening in the world today. And you tell me. These people were living not just for now. they were living for millennials. Because your life is not supposed to be just this little glimpse here. But everything that you do here is going to determine whether you live for millennials or just for now. Not because there is a hell waiting for you. We don't believe in that. But if all your energy went somewhere else, then you don't have anything. You don't have anything now, and you don't have anything later on either. Because as you live, your energy, as you live, what you do with it, what you put it towards, that's going to be your legacy. If you're listening to this, if you're 50 years old, you'll notice that when you were 20, you thought of life one way. Now that you're 50, you start thinking about, oh, what's going to be my legacy? What's going to be my heritage? But still, you're thinking about it more in terms of this world. But if you look back, you'll see what you did for the last 30 years is what's going to dictate what your legacy will be. Well, these people that I'm talking about from Kemet, the way they lived, every action that they took, they thought about that, what their legacy will be. And that legacy, all they thought about was their spiritual lives. What was that going to promise in the end? Of course, while they were doing that, they had all the accolades of materialism. They still had that, but it wasn't the primary thing, because that would have been a fallacy. And that's what they have us do now, venerating a false god. And most of us are willing to give our energy away for nothing, for material things that in the next, I'd say 50 years is going to have no meaning. Absolutely none. I don't care how much money you have. It will have no meaning if you can't maintain your energy, if your offspring cannot maintain their energy for millennia, for thousands of years, not just a couple generations, but for thousands of years. So I spoke about that before in videos about Deontay Wilder, but to me, it's the most clear case of how religious intimidations can play mind games on us on an everyday basis. But you see it clearly in the case of Deontay Wilder with Tyson Fury. Religious intimidation, artificial intelligence, it's real. All of this you see going on in the world to create a lot of fear. There's a reason for that. The more fear, the more unstable people are, the more energy they give off, and the more energy they can take with them. And if you understand or have any inclination of what voodoo is as a spiritual system, there is no way they would have been able to monetize voodoo. You can't monetize it. For one, there is no hierarchy in voodoo, first of all. So there is no priest, there is no Vatican, there is no Pope. Even a 2-year-old can tell you in the village, you're doing this wrong, or this is what you should be doing. If we having a voodoo ceremony and a 2-year-old is invoked by the laws, the 2-year-old will tell you, the laws will talk to this through this 2-year-old or through this 5-year-old and tell the whole village of 90-something years old, this is what you should do, or this is what you're doing wrong. Take this herb and do this with it. This herb is the antidote to that. Or we have this sickness, this herb is to heal. This 5-year-old can say it. And no one is going to look at that 5-year-old and saying that he's not intelligent enough, he's too young, or anything like that. That's the kind of system voodoo is. It doesn't discriminate. Because we are all gods. In a system like that, you could see how everyone respects everyone else, including the female. There is no hierarchy in voodoo, male and female. That the male is more, a male practitioner is more knowledgeable versus a female practitioner. There's no such thing. So you could see how voodoo was a threat to the whole entire world. Because this world, this patriarchal world, had a plan for us. And you can see the plan now. Hopefully by now you see what it was. And this small little group of people who was controlling the entire world when Dessalines, our emperor back in 1804, took it back after slavery, beat the French army, and we declared our independence. That was a threat to the whole world, not just economically, but spiritually. That was a threat because they weren't going to be able to take the entire world and made them slaves. Not if we had anything to do with it, not if we were allowed to build our civilization after that. But the plan is they just delayed it. It's just a delayed plan. But it's still en route. The only thing that can save this world is voodoo, to which human beings can be human again, can venerate the gods of the cosmos, can be human, can practice spirituality, can be one with nature, can venerate nature. Not because we're going to recycle one plastic bottle. No, we won't make plastic bottles anymore, so we don't have to recycle them. That would be the intelligent thing to do. In voodoo, we don't do that. We have intelligent decisions that we make. We drank out of something that came out of a plant that's called calabash. We eat in calabash. We eat in leaves. We've been doing this for a long time. That's why we were a threat. Voodoo would not allow for us to poison the waters with toxic waste and then turn around and said, oh, we have a movement. We're going to clean up the waters. That's an insane way of thinking. That's why voodoo was demonized. It would not allow the world to make A, you a slave, and B, for it to do everything that it's doing to take your energy on top of it. So, what about all the unknowns of voodoo? I finally see, this is my first live, so I didn't even see that you guys were putting questions. All the unknowns of voodoo? Well, the universe has a lot of unknowns, doesn't it? So unknowns are not a bad thing. If the Egyptian gods, you notice how every god was a symbol of an animal. They use an animal to symbolize a certain god. It's something. There's something good also sometimes about unknown. It's like I don't know the finality of this, but to the extent of my knowledge, I understand it to be this. It's kind of nice, like to say I don't. Ultimately, religion would like to make you think, I want to know who God is. But you are God. You know who you are. Once you enter the realm of the godly, you realize you are God. And then your questions stop because you understand enough. It's sort of like greedy to think, I don't know. If you don't know enough, if you always feel like I don't know enough, that's because you don't know yourself. I don't know enough. I want to know the unknowns. That's because you don't know yourself. Once you know enough to manipulate your environment, to live happily in your environment, and to feel in your environment, you know enough. When you need to know more, you access more, you know more. But to have the thought of, I'm not comfortable because I don't know enough, that's a problem thought. You see that? You see how that wouldn't be a godly thought. You're not God then, because you're thinking there is a lack. You're now entering the lack. That's not godly. If you God, you have access to what you need when you need it, and then that's that. And you also have in the back of your mind that when you need whatever you're going to need in the future, you're going to have access to that too. So then there is no lack, and then there is no stress. But voodoo, besides being demonized, the enemy played a very, very crafty game with us. First, he demonized our spirituality. He demonized who we were, all the way to everything, like I said, from how we laugh, how we talk, how we dress, how we eat, what we eat, how we give birth to everything. And then he gave us a false God, a false system for us to exist in. Through it, because we are the geniuses that we are, my ancestors, the geniuses that they were, they turned it around because they would not give up to what they knew in the beginning. So when Christianity gave us their religion, the Africans took the Christianity, the saints, all the rituals that the Christians do. They would act as if they were doing those rituals. But in their mind, they said to themselves, I am invoking my laws. I am invoking my African gods, because it's in them that I believe. But they act that they were doing it to the Christians' rituals because they had to, because they couldn't outright practice their own spirituality. So over time, generations being born into this, what happened, there's a mixture in our voodoo of Christianity and our own African spirituality. So there's a mixture in there. That mixture obviously has posed a problem, obviously, because some of it's not ours. We've made it ours through the trauma that we were put through, the atrocities, to the evil that we've endured. We put something else together to help us, to save us. And it's because in our reunion that we did, finally, after 300 years of slavery, we're doing this mixture of Christians and voodoo together, because we can't do our own thing freely. But it's because in the end, after 300 years of slavery, our voodoo priest in our ceremony that was to give us liberty, in that ceremony, he said, we have served the white God for 300 years, but we realize the white God wants our blood. That's all he wants. He loves to see us cry. He loves to see tears in our eyes. We will not continue to serve him. We want our liberty. And to have our liberty, we're going to denounce him, that God that they gave us, and we will invoke our gods, our African gods. And it's that prayer that gave us our liberty. So there's something to be said about that prayer that Bookman Duty said, because it was after he invoked that prayer, whether you want to believe it or not, that we were able to free ourselves. There's something to be said about that. I'm going to believe wholeheartedly, 300,000% that it was because they denounced the false God that they were able to liberate themselves. But you'll hear other people say otherwise. Of course, after we liberated ourselves, the enemy came right in real quickly and inject himself into our society, into our minds, and told us that, no, what you did was demonic. Can you imagine? Freeing ourselves, they made us think, was demonic. Freeing ourselves. We weren't supposed to do that. And some of us, unfortunately, sadly to say, some of us believe that yes, maybe if we had stayed slaves for another 1,000 years, then God would have eventually free us. Some of us Haitians, unfortunately, think like that. But no, what happened was, after that, we went back to serving that very same God that had enslaved us. And here we are back in slavery. To me, that makes more sense than anything else. And I will, I'll bake my whole life, all my energy on that, because that makes sense. You see? So the Christianity that is in voodoo is indirectly what's causing some voodoo practitioners to misunderstand voodoo spirituality as a system. Because Christianity, with its concepts of Satan, with its concept of evil, with its concept of God, the God, the false God in the sky, all of those things, if you have that in your mind as conceptions, it's going to be difficult for you to do metaphysics. It's going to be difficult for you to understand astrology. Even if you say you renounce them, you don't do them. But if they hear, this is what's going to be working in your brain, with your chi, with the frequencies, with everything else. That's what's going to be working, because it has to go through you. It has to go through this brain. It has to go through this mind. And if this mind, whatever this mind holds as truth, that's what's going to come out. Remember, the spirits, they are spirits. But in order for it to go through you, it has to go through this matter. This matter, how is it prepared? How refined is it? What's in it? What are you keeping in it every day that you are giving power to? If it's any of those things, that's what's going to come out. It's a formula. If what comes through you, it's too dense. It's too dense because you have parts of yourself that's been so traumatized. That's what's going to come out. That is why when you go see a voodoo practitioner, you yourself, you might understand more than the practitioner. Even though he's a practitioner, but he has his limit. So a lot of time when you hear people talk about a voodoo, the bad parts of voodoo is the people who misunderstand voodoo. And let's not forget, slavery had traumatized us so bad. Plus you add poverty, violence, and what they turn our country into. They divided us so much. Religion has divided us to begin with, but plus poverty, plus violence. Then you add artificial intelligence to that, religious intimidation. You start forcing people to venerate a false god, whether you do it because you give them $5. That's what the missionaries do when they go to Haiti. They give people food because they know this is quote unquote a poor country. We're not a poor country, but that's what they tell you. But they make these people to think they're poor through their programming, through their brainwashing. People feel they're so poor. And when they see these people coming, and you have to understand, this is their God because, these are white missionaries coming in and it's making these. So when they see a white missionary, it's not just a white missionary. This is a God in front of them. If you really understand the psychology of trauma, this is a God that's now come, and the God comes to save you. And the savior in this instance is, I'm giving you food, and you need food. And these people really need food because they put their country in a state where they need food. So now I'm giving you the food. I am your God. I am your savior. So that same person now, when they're practicing their voodoo, that same person is practicing their own spirituality because no matter how poor they are, they're trying to stay within themselves, within their truths, which is what their mothers, their grandmothers taught them. But when they are practicing it, what's coming out? What's in here? They've reduced them. They have reduced them as human beings. They've reduced them to think like a slave. Well, it is that slave now that is practicing their African spirituality, that is invoking the gods. It's with that mindset. So who's doing voodoo? Voodoo is knowledge. Voodoo is intelligence. They'll like to make you think voodoo is something dirty, is something inferior. Voodoo is knowledge, ultimate knowledge, knowledge of self, knowledge of the cosmos, knowledge of nature, knowledge of everything around you. A voodoo priest cannot be an ignorant person. It's just impossible. The two don't go together. When I was growing up in Haiti, a voodoo priest is somebody in the community that had knowledge to everything, from the child who's sick, what's the medicine, the herbal medicine they were going to put together to treat the child. Same thing for the woman who's giving birth. Same thing for the older person who has arthritis. Same thing for two people who has some sort of disagreement between them. He was the psychologist. He was the psychiatrist. He was the medical doctor. Okay? He was the engineer. He was everything. Because that's what voodoo is. You have knowledge. You have knowledge of everything. You don't have to go to school to get knowledge. No. Because your first school is life. Your first school is the universe. I know she's my people. I hear her accent. Yes, yeah, you will hear my accent, especially when I'm a little emotional. Absolutely. So you see, my people, I talk about in my platform, I'm trying to get my people, my Black people, if to come together to liberate ourselves. We will never be able to liberate ourselves outside of our system of voodoo, which has all intelligence, all knowledge, knowledge of self. Like I said, knowledge of the cosmos. It did that before, it liberated us before, and it can do it again. But we all have to be within that system, because it's in that system that we can understand each other. First of all, it's that system, it's the only system that can rally all of us together under one umbrella, because we stand for one thing. And the enemy knew that. That is why the enemy demonized voodoo, because that way we'll never be able to come together. I feel bad when I talk to some of my Haitian brothers in system, and religion is the very first thing that divides us. They find out that I'm a voodoo practitioner, a voodoo believer, and I don't understand how Haitians can think I can be Haitian and not be a voodoo practitioner or voodoo believer. For I understand all Haitians are voodoo practitioners and voodoo believers, whether they know it or not, in a way. Because voodoo is the very fiber of who we are. Voodoo left the shores of Africa with us when we were kidnapped. Voodoo got on those boats, and voodoo said, "Where are you going? I'm coming with you, because I cannot let you leave this land by yourself." And voodoo came with us. Voodoo went to Jamaica with us. Voodoo went to Haiti with us. Voodoo went to Barbados with us. Voodoo went to Martinique with us. Voodoo went to Brazil with us. Voodoo went to Cuba with us. Voodoo went everywhere with us. Voodoo sustained us until we were liberated. It's not just the people we're talking about. We're talking about a heritage. Voodoo itself, as a system of the universe, of the cosmos, will not disappear. I may disappear, but voodoo will not disappear. And since voodoo is in me, when I practice it, when I keep my energy, when I maintain my energy, I am the legacy of voodoo. And that is what the world wants to trash. And the way they're able to do that, we wouldn't have a universe. Because trust me, if they could already destroyed voodoo, they can't. They tried, but they can't. I'm speaking. I'm here speaking. That's proof that they can't. And I will continue to speak. As much as they are censoring people, I will speak. Because for me not to speak would mean that the atrocities that my ancestors went through, that if I deny them, that means it never happened. It means I can let the enemy tell their stories. And the enemy can put a veneer on their stories and said, "Oh, it wasn't so bad. Yes, we burned a few of them, but it wasn't that bad." Or it can say things like, "Oh, well, they wanted to be Christians anyway." Or it can say things like, "Well, Africa, they sold them. They sold their own people." Or it can say, "Oh, well, Africa was a tribal place. You know, it wasn't really a system of governments. They were tribal." No, they weren't tribal. They may have became later on after foreign invasion, but they had the most sophisticated systems in the universe of everything. System of government, system of agriculture, system, everything of societies. They built that. But now when the enemy talks about them, you hardly recognize if these people really did exist. Plus, finally, when they finally have proof that, oh, well, these people did a lot of things, then they say, "Oh, well, it wasn't them. It couldn't have been them." That is why I speak. That is why I have to be who I am, because I represent these people. They are in me. They are my ancestors. You are your ancestors. You are the gods. They live through you. But you have to live to your system. because theirs is a watered down version, a no frill version. And my ancestors do not want no frill existence. Yes, that's the new narrative, being slowed down our throats of these days, nothing but lies. Yes, it was always lies, really. It's just now it's more obvious. It's more obvious. And the more obvious it is, you know what that means? People would think, people who are slaves would like to think, oh, well, we're getting out. No, you're not getting out. What it really means is they have refined the system so good with technology. It's a given now. So you actually have more work to do to get out of that system, not less work. And remember, your enemy will never liberate you. A master never liberates a slave. And even if it did, you just becomes an other version of a slave, but you will always be a slave. Only ones who takes its own liberty can call himself or herself a free person. Okay, not one where the master's quote unquote tells you, well, you liberated. Yeah, you liberated from here to here. Yes. So the boxing match is this Saturday. Like I said, my friend Alain Dewash, who was a victim of that, he overcame that with voodoo. He was able to do that. They went into his brain. They worked in it, but he had been practicing metaphysics, so he really understood the entire system. This stuff is happening now. Everything is being told to you. You just can't hear it because you've been brainwashed to think another way. When you see something, you don't see it for what it is because they've been brainwashing you for you not to think like that. That's why you don't see everything, but everything is in front of you. They put it in all the symbols. They can't hide it. That's law. That's the principles of the universe. You can't hide stuff. Stuff is here. What they can do is make you think you're not seeing right. That they can do. But they can't hide the stuff. They can hide it through another veneer by saying, that's not what you saw, by getting in here. But everything is here. Everything is open. You can see everything. Because everything is here. Even the books that they write. If you really read it with the eyes you're supposed to read it, not with the understanding that they gave you, with the understanding behind what the laws gave you, what our gods, you will see everything because they cannot hide it. They can code it, but you can decode it. So, why do you think I wear my dresses? I do my hair. I do that. You know why? You know what power? It's not just to be beautiful. It's because there's power in that. Every time you take something that was taken from you traumatically and you take it back one at a time, you take it back and you take it with pride. You take it with power. Not the pride or power because it's in fashion now. You know, my hair is natural because it's in fashion. Not that. That's, you're still back in their stuff again. You're back in their stuff. Like I said, they have many back doors. You go from one door out, they put another back door. Oh, they want natural hair. Let's put a back door for them. Natural hair. Let's go. Everybody, let's go natural hair. And then you see everybody's wearing. Yeah, but with what energy are you wearing the natural hair? That's what's important. If it's because they told you, if it's because they now accepted it and you're now doing it, well, guess what? That's another back door. You have to take it in, take it with power. It's got to be your own power. So you have to do it when it's not acceptable. So they may say, oh, you could wear it here, you could wear it here, but you can't wear it here. Okay, then I'm going to have to wear it there. And I'm going to have to take the backlash when I wear it. And I'm going to probably have to have you tell me I'm not supposed to wear it. I'll let you tell me that. Because guess what? I've worn it. That's what's important. You have to stand for the gods. You have to put the gods into evidence. That's what I mean when I say put your God into evidence. There can't be afternoon gods and weekend gods and hobby gods. So now that we are aware, how do we liberate ourselves a second time? Can we replicate revolution? The revolution this time is a revolution of your mind. Like I just said, you have to manage your energy. So the first thing you have to do, you have to start assuming who you are. Kings of Queens. You have to start assuming who you really are. And once you start doing that, you'll see things are going to start happening for you and those around you. But it's not for the faint of heart. It's real work. Assuming who you are is real work. It's really hard because the world has told you who to be for a long time. For a long time, they've told you who you are. That's not who you are, but they told you this is who you are. So you believed it. If you're 50 years old, you believed it for the last 50 years. This is who I am. If you're 25, you've been believing it. So how do you let that person disappear? And it's a process to let that person disappear, but that person has to disappear because that is not you. That is who they told you you are, but that's not you. Layer by layer, slowly, you have to observe yourself. You have to start looking at your whole life. First of all, you have to start looking at your whole life. Look at what is this life thing? What is it? What's that? They told me this is life. I get up in the morning, I do this. I look at everything that you do, everything that you think, what you think about life, your conceptions. Is that really true? Is that really life? Or is that what they told you? Look at your mother, look at your father, look at how they live, look at your grandmother, look at how they lived. What I know today, I know because my grandmother, I used to watch my grandmother. Wasn't because I wanted to do it. I was back home. This is how it is. I grew up with my grandmother, but I remember hating her in a way for a little bit when I was a kid because she forced me to be home. She didn't want me to go to school, for example. And I love school. I'm like, I want to go to school. I want to be with the other kids. She didn't want me to go to school. She wanted me to be with her. She had a restaurant. In the restaurant, she wanted me to do chores, hard stuff like grilling coffee, preparing food and stuff like that when I was as young as 7, 8 years old. And I felt like I want to go to school. I want to be normal like the other kids. But what I didn't know at that time was that was the preparation for the me that she knew I was going to become. She had something she wanted to transcend to me. And now that is the person who teaches me everything. How? By remembering who she was. And then I realized everything that she was is what the world say we should not be. And then I said, but wait a minute. I remember her, and I remember her being a very happy, peaceful, at ease person, someone that wasn't frazzled by anything, someone that was powerful beyond measure, this woman. Yet very poised. Had everybody, powerful people coming at her. This is a woman who didn't know how to read or write, never been to school. And very powerful people, educated people coming to her, bowing at her. As a kid, I thought, that is something. How'd she do it? Then, when I was frazzled myself, I started remembering who she was. And I started remembering how she lived. And I started taking in everything. What was life to her? What was life to her? Because she didn't have all these things that I have now. So how could her life have been so grand? This world told me in order for life to be grand, I have to have this and this and that. It has to be this. She didn't have any of those things. But when I look back, I saw that she had everything. Everything she had. Because she had all the essence of what life is. And that's all you need. You don't need to have everything, but you need to have the basics. The basics. By giving us, quote unquote, everything, we don't even have the basics. We don't have the basics. And we wonder why our lives are so meager. We have meager lives compared that to what we could have had, compared to what our ancestors had. We have meager lives. With all of our degrees and everything else, we have meager lives because we are not sitting in ourselves. We're not rooted into anything. Our lives have to take root somewhere, and we're not rooted. That's why we see as a people, we can't get together. We said we divided because we don't have roots. Each one of us believes something different. There's no roots. My grandmother had roots. She knew, she venerated the gods. She practiced the spirituality that her mother venerated, her father venerated. And her mother before that, the mother of her mother before that, going back to old lineage. She stayed in that one house her entire life. She never moved. She did the same thing every day. She served her community. She never wore glitz and glamour. Hardly. It didn't mean nothing to her. What meant something to her, though, she did every day. Her spirituality. She never missed when it was time to do her voodoo dance. Every day, her business that she had, her livelihood, that was part of her voodoo. It wasn't outside of voodoo. No, everything that she did was part of her spirituality. Everything. And I said, that's what she had. That's it. But she didn't know how to read and write. This world would have said this woman is unsuccessful, cannot make it. And I'm talking making it. I'm not talking meager making it, just successful in the eyes of the world. I'm talking about leaving a legacy behind. A true legacy. What do you think about that? Challenge the whole world. I think the power and the depth of African spirituality is the path to be in a peace and challenge. Yes, absolutely, Benji. Yes. But it's not sexy. African spirituality is not sexy. That is why they couldn't monetize it either. When I say it's not sexy, they've had us believe that solutions have to be fast. Well, you should be able to philosophize that. What's the philosophy of it? What does it say? Read it, put it down. It's not like that. You enter it and you let it teach you. That's it. You enter it, you let it teach you. All the rituals is to put you into a system that will teach you who you are. You come in without knowing anything. You don't know anything. You leave, you know who you are. That's it. Nothing else. And you live your life for that. Not the other way around. You live life for that. It's a very difficult concept for people to understand. I live my life for that. What about everything else I have to do? People say, I have so many other things. I'm busy. I have things to do. Well, that's just it. All those things you're doing, you're not getting anywhere if you notice. Right? By now we all notice, right? Let's just tell the truth. We're not getting anywhere. There must be a reason for that. That's because you're not really doing anything for yourself. Everything you're doing is for somebody else. Nothing for the self here, the big self. Voodoo forces you in that system to do everything for the gods first. You serve the gods first. So everything that you do, everything that you touch, every action is for the gods. So you do it with that energy. That's what that means. You do it with the energy that's for the gods. You put yourself second. But wait, as you do that, you become first again. Because who are the gods? You are. But if you don't go through that system, through that route, your ego won't let you do it for you. The system has given you an ego that is such a tyrant, it will be in your own way. It won't let you do anything for yourself. It will sabotage you. Not until you're about to enter the grave, you'll realize, oh my God, that wasn't even me. I abandoned me for this little thing here, talking all the time. That's your ego. So the way the system of voodoo is set up, it's set up so that how brilliant our ancestors are. How brilliant. It's set up so that it bypasses the ego and makes you serve the gods. In it, the ego has no other choice but to sit back and become a slave to you, which is the way it's supposed to be, not the other way around. Right now, we are all slaves to our ego. How can we find our essence when we are so enveloped in false religions? Well, Gitoma, people have to make decisions. They have to start learning about the very religion that they actually practicing and see what it is. Most people who are religious don't really know what they are practicing. They just know what was handed down to them. So they keep doing the same thing without ever questioning it. And that's how it keeps going. If you question it, really, if you go to history and you question it, you start looking at everything that's happening in the world, even what's happening in your own religion, in your own church, you start seeing the hypocrisy. That they say one thing, what they say, what they promise, it just doesn't add up. You start there. Some people, that's all it takes for them to realize they're not serving. It's an egregore. It's not a deity. You break the chains by starting to come back to who you are. Come back to you. Come back to nature. Nature is a great way to center you back to who you are. And voodoo is all about nature. Again, like I said, the ancestors were brilliant. Voodoo is all about nature. Everything we do has the 4 elements in it. Okay? That's it. Voodoo is, we respect the waters, we respect the ocean, the rivers, the earth, the air, fire, everything. Through voodoo uses all that, and we respect that. It's kind of hard to practice your spirituality if you get up every morning and you go do something, like you go to work and you are manipulating the 4 elements, but you never think about it like that as something that's in the universe that, I'm manipulating, this is part of the 4 elements, that I'm doing this because I'm saluting the 4 elements. Oh, this is what's here. If you don't think like that, automatically, you deaden yourself. Voodoo as a system, it's here to remind you on a daily basis that this is life, the 4 elements. This is life. There is nothing that is alive that doesn't contain those 4 elements. Yet, every day, you have a lot of thoughts, but you never think about that. It's not automatic for you to think about that, because they put you in a system for you to think, oh, that's not important, and you don't need to think about that. These are the important things here that you need to think about. Meanwhile, that's what's giving you life. This is what life is all about. Try to live life without a cup of water and see how long you can last. Try not to have, grow food so you can eat to nourish yourself. And also not even forget about nourishing yourself, not having plants to give you oxygen. That's part of the 4 elements. How long would life go without that? This is what we venerate in voodoo. Those very things that sustain us. And they demonize that. But yet they turn around, they take those very same things and do other things, and they make you think that's perfectly normal when they do something with it, but not you. So that's where the hypocrisy is. Those are the things you start questioning. Those are the things you start entering more and more for you to see the hypocrisy. Because in the end, you have to realize that your whole life has been a lie. All of it. And then you have to face it. Some people, they cannot face that because they love certain parts of their lives so much that they would rather live a lie than to accept the truth, because it's just too much for them to give up. But what they don't know is that on the other side of that lies a whole lot more than your meager life that they make you think is so grand. I discovered all religions were similar. Voodoo and Christianity are very close. Now, I talked about that, Nana. Voodoo and Christianity is not close at all, but there is a mixture of Christianity and voodoo, but that's not the true voodoo. That's the syncretism that happened during slavery, since the slaves were forced to practice Christianity. And because of that, they in turn acted as if they were actually practicing Christianity, but really what they were doing was venerating their own gods. But with time, that became part of the voodoo practice, which now we're trying to clean up. Some of the certain saints of Catholic saints entered the voodoo realm, where some of the Loas, they will use an image of the Catholic saints of the Loas, which is, if you go to Africa, you won't find those images in Africa, because they kept to their laws, probably because they were able to stay home. They weren't kidnapped and transported somewhere else, which is a whole different for the Haitian voodoo. The elements are constantly under attack by the system. Thank you, Gitoma. I'm glad somebody understands. Yes, constant. And really, what are we talking about? We're talking about nature itself. We're talking about the universe itself. So there's a battle going on between the universe and another group of people. Hence why I said they are not the same people. They are not from this planet. They are not. They can't be, because they're attacking this very planet and the people they found in it. And that's what the spiritual battle is all about. That's what the controlling of people is all about, to seize our energy and to take it to another planet. Okay. Catching the Holy Spirit and getting a possess. Well, I don't like to use the word possess, first of all, because again, that has like a Christian connotation of possess, of evil and stuff like that. A lot of their words and conceptions I try not to use. Magic, I don't use. Tell me, please, is magic good or bad thing? Magic is of the universe. It's almost like saying, Nana, if I ask you, if they find that, for example, they find that marijuana can help with pain and can help with depression, which is an herb, that is a sort of a magic, really. That's exactly, it is magic. Is that good or bad? It's part of the cosmos. How can it be bad unless somebody labeled it bad for some other reasons? It's like saying this is a sin. Says who? What law? What principle? What law said that? But those same people who said that didn't find anything wrong with burning people alive and putting people into slavery for 300 plus years. This is where the hypocrisy lies. That's why I can't go with what they tell me, because, I mean, look at who's telling you what, some of the principles they have, Everything that religion came up with was just for them to have an excuse to do the evils that they wanted to do. Period. The Bible was written by Constantine. Religion was invented by Constantine. So we know where that came from. Are there Haitian houses that are practicing or learning Afa divination from Benin, Togo? Yes, Houston, yes, there are. Is magic good or bad thing? I just explained that magic, it depends on your mind. It depends on who's using it. There's nothing bad about voodoo. Everything about voodoo is positive. Everything about voodoo is for the betterment of humanity. That is why voodoo liberated Haiti in 1804. That was for the betterment of slavery that was happening in the entire world, not just in Haiti. And in so doing, when voodoo liberated Haiti, voodoo liberated the whole world from slavery, not just Haiti, because it stopped the business of slavery, which was the biggest economic business at that time. It forced the devilish people to come up with a different strategy for slavery. Had voodoo did not do that in 1804, we probably would have had slavery the way it was for another 3,000 years. Okay? And that is why they demonized voodoo, because imagine right now if somebody could figure out a way to stop what's happening in the world right now, the whole stock market, the whole technology. If somebody had knowledge and they're going to stop that, you could see how that person would have been a threat to this world right now, right? So that's how it was back in 1804. This was the only business that was building civilization, building France, building America, building England, the entire world, okay, being built by slavery, essentially. And we stopped that. We said, no, this is enough. Can't do that. And they retaliated after we did that. They demonized it, which made our people didn't use it anymore. You don't use it, so then you lose it. It's no longer in your brain. It's no longer in your mind. It's no longer passing down from generation to generation. It's not going through your genes anymore because you've given it up. And when you look at 200 years later, you look at the state of Haiti, this is the result. You look at the state of black people, all black people who went back to religion to venerate egregore, this is the result. They are slaves. As a group, you might find individual black people who are quote unquote successful, but what's the legacy? Can their offspring 300 years from now, will they also be free? Not that the ones here right now are free anyway, but let's just say, for argument's sake, pick any black person who's quote unquote successful. Will their legacy, will their offspring be free like that for even 50 years? No, they won't be. And that's what we should be working towards. Not individual success, which is not a success at all, as I just explained to you. If your spiritual success is what you want. Anything else is just a no-frill illusions that they're offering you. That cannot sustain itself, that cannot sustain you, that cannot sustain your offspring, that cannot sustain itself. That is meaningless to the universe in terms of real legacy. It's meaningless. I have an uncle that was stricken to sacrifice his most loved one, which was his son, to gain money. Well, that's what this system is. This system tells you a lie, that it tells you that voodoo is sacrifice. It tells you that voodoo does mean things. But like I said, voodoo, we have not created the weapons of mass destruction. We don't have any biologicals that are, destroying people. We haven't destroyed anyone's culture or spirituality as a whole. Voodoo has not done any of those things. But the religions that are demonizing voodoo has done all those things, has had crusades, has had world wars, has had weapons of mass destruction, has dropped bomb on Hiroshima. We haven't done any of those things, but yet we are the demons. We are this. It's interesting, the narratives, how they can make you think here. This is what I'm saying. You see how even when you can see the truth, black and white, you should be able to say, well, I cannot say voodoo is bad or satanic because it hasn't done those things. But yet the very system that has done all those things also tells you, I'm peaceful. This is a peaceful religion. You go to church, it's quiet. Okay, the long robes, the cross, the whole thing, the mass, very quiet, drinking the blood of Jesus, the communion, it's well crafted, all to subdue you, all, it's an illusion. You see it, but you can't recognize it. That's a trick. And it's really not a trick, though. But it's a trick. It's not a trick. It's a trick for those who can't see. But they've been doing it for a long time. It's well crafted. So well crafted that you can sit in it and you don't even smell it. Now, everyone will use voodoo for good when we have a consciousness of voodoo practitioners like we used to have. Everything is about a certain consciousness. If we don't have that consciousness, then it can't happen. But to have that consciousness, each of us has to enter it and do our part. We can't wait and say, well, when they're doing that, then I'll enter voodoo. Because you yourself can be part of that light. You are part of that light. So each person who comes and light their flame, after a while, then the whole thing is lit. That's how that's done. That's why I say it's not a system where, they want to make you think like, oh, show me how it's going to be done. I have to be sure. I need proof. It's not like that. Yeah, Haiti will stand up again, even Stephen. And like I said, a planned delay that's the plan that was delayed with Haiti in 1804. They delayed the plan, but it will continue. Haiti will liberate the whole world. As tiny of an island that it is, that's its job. It started it, and that's what it will finish. It will liberate the world because it has voodoo. The Haitian voodoo is powerful because it went to the trauma of slavery. And it went to the trauma of slavery in Haiti. It went through that whole structure, and it's like a fire, and it just strengthened itself even more. Then it met with the Tainos, which was the other people that was in the land of Haiti before the slaves came in. So the Tainos had their own spirituality, which was pretty much the same thing as voodoo. But it's a mixture of those two together. Imagine, it's a beautiful story in itself. Imagine two different group of people being attacked. One was attacked in its own land by the enemy, and genocidal wars literally completely kill off all of those people. The little bit of those people that were left met with the Africans who were kidnapped on the shores of Africa, brought to the same land. And those two people met. And imagine the communion that they had to look at the enemy who wants to destroy both of them. And they met together and they shared their knowledge. They shared their knowledge for the good of humanity. The Tainos said, we won't be here. We don't want to be here. Because these people had made this place a hell. But we want you to survive. We're going to give you the secrets of this land because it has its own secrets. When we talk about voodoo, we're not talking about just lighting up candles and, what they make you think, dresses like this and dance. That's all part of it, yes. But it's a complete system. A system of liberation. Voodoo is resistance. It resists anything that don't belong. And anything that is not positive does not belong. It resists that. Anything else that you see people are doing, that's not voodoo. They may do it in the name of voodoo, but it's not voodoo. Voodoo liberates. Voodoo is knowledge, like I told you guys. It's hard to find a good leader. Everyone has their hidden agenda. Nana, let voodoo teach you. Each one of us is a god. I said, Aibobo. I say, look for the match this Saturday, Weidler and Fury. The boxing match is going to be this Saturday. Go look at it. I'm going to see how Weidler is going to behave since he has now accepted Jesus Christ. But I'm rooting for him because I'm rooting for the gods of Egypt that he was claiming in the beginning, very beginning, that was with him. So I'm still rooting for him. I'm still going to call into my gods to be with him on Saturday to show the strength of our Egyptian gods once again, for they are all here with us. They are all here in us. So we just have to awaken them. They are here, ready to be awakened in us. But we have to say goodbye to this world of illusions, this world of meager existence that they have offered us. So I said good night and thank you for coming to my life. I don't really know. Where do I stop this thing? I don't even, where's this? I don't see the stop button. Where is it? I guess I'll find out how to end. Let me touch. So thank you all for coming. And then I'm going to find out how to post this live. Of course. I don't know if it stays. You're welcome, everyone. You're welcome. Can somebody tell me how to turn this thing off? I see a little power off button. Next one. Bottom corner. Okay, I see 3 dots. I'll post the next one. Oh, flip camera, comment. Thank you, everyone. Let me see if that's it. If this is it, then I'm going to say good night. It will stop. It's the little thing I see here, I think. Oh, yeah, that's it.